Can Sarah Boone submit documents, letters, motions indefinitely on the docket for all of the people online to read, or at some point can a court step in and stop her from doing so? That is a question I had and I have asked, and I've not gotten a concrete response. And I've gone on different communities and looked at other people asking the same question, and they've not gotten a concrete response. And I'm sadly going to tell you, I still don't have one. But what I do think is a little relevant to take a look at, maybe, is 3rd District Court of Appeal, State of Florida, Derek Emil Lewis v. Ricky D. Dixon. In my search, I came across this case. And as you can see, this file was done. This was filed on May 1st, 2024. So this is pretty recent. Now, it's not exactly the same scenario with Sarah Boone, but let's take a look into it and see if you understand why I find this interesting. Derek Emil Lewis, petitioner, representing himself, petitioned this court for a writ of habeas corpus. On February 16, 2024, we denied his petition and issued an order to show cause why petitioner should not be prohibited from submitting any further self-represented filings with this court related to lower tribunal case number 4911932. Now, what is that case? In 1993, petitioner pleaded guilty to the offenses of second-degree murder, burglary with an assault, and arson. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison on the second-degree murder charge, 20 years each on the burglary and arson charges, all sentences to run consecutively. Immediately, he began to file a series of post-conviction motions. In Lewis v. State, 911, 2D, 23, I'm not going to read all of these, this court cataloged 11 post-conviction motions between 1994 and 2004. Since then, we note the filing of an additional 8 post-conviction motions, including the instant one, as recently as 2019. In denying another habeas corpus petition, this court warned petitioner that further meritless pro se filings may result in this court issuing a show cause order, and nonetheless, since then, petitioner has filed 2 more cases in this court. So, as you can see here, this is an individual who has been filing to this court for almost 20 years. 20 years. That was a lot to sink in for me. Now, would they give Sarah Boone that much, pro se? I don't know. I feel like the amount that this guy submitted in 20 years, Sarah Boone has probably already submitted in her current case, so maybe they wouldn't go as long. But let's continue for how this goes. Although our order to show cause gave petitioner 45 days to respond, petitioner did not file a response. Accordingly, petitioner has not shown good cause. The access to courts provision of the Florida Constitution, Article 1, Section 21, provides an avenue for an incarcerated person in Florida to challenge the legal basis of his or her incarceration. So what this means is, due to the Florida Constitution, Sarah Boone is going to be able to continue filing motions. Just to make that clear, for people that were wondering, the answer is yes, she can still do it. I also did take a look into this case, and I am so happy to say that at least in some of the filings this man has made, they are typed up. So I am assuming that maybe once she reaches a prison, her filings, instead of being handwritten, can then be typed. Which is just a blessing for all of us. But here we continue. However, this constitutional right may be forfeited if that person abuses the judicial process. And they have case law here. Does anyone think Sarah Boone, the woman who lost her right to a court-appointed lawyer, is not going to abuse the judicial process? Continue. Our responsibility is to balance the incarcerated person's right to access to courts with the need of this court to devote its finite resources to legitimate appeals and petitions, State v. Spencer. Accordingly, after notice in the form of an order to show cause and an opportunity for the incarcerated person to respond, a court may prevent further filings. Now, in this case, he did not respond. If he responded, that doesn't mean he would immediately succeed. I assume Sarah Boone in this situation would respond. She loves to respond. That's her favorite pastime. What else is she going to do? But that doesn't mean she'd get to continue. And here we have the conclusion. We conclude that petitioner has not demonstrated good cause to justify further represented filings of appeals, petitions, motions, or other pleadings with this court related to lower tribunal case F91-19322. We direct the court of the 3rd District Court of Appeal to not accept any further filings from petitioner related to this court case number unless such a filing has been reviewed and signed by an attorney who is a licensed member of the Florida Bar in good standing. Any further and unauthorized self-represented filings by petitioner will subject him to sanctions, including the issuance of written findings forwarded to the Florida Department of Corrections for consideration of disciplinary action, including forfeiture of gain time. Issue ordered. Order issued. Sorry, got that backwards. Not exactly the same. Not exactly the same as Sarah Boone. This is a guy trying to go up to a higher court, but I don't think this is something I would put past Sarah. Like, theoretically, we have to think about the scenario that Sarah Boone is looking at a possibility of life. Sarah Boone is looking at the minimum sentence being essentially a life sentence. You have a lower life expectancy in prison. What type of quality of life could she have once released? There is a decent chance she dies in prison, and if she gets out, what does she do? Sarah Boone, I expect, is going to try everything she can. Sarah Boone is not going to think she did anything wrong. Sarah Boone is going to attempt every appeal she can, with or without a lawyer. Remind you, this man was stopped by the 3rd District Court of Appeal. To them, I believe he could probably still file to the lower courts after 20 years. Are you ready for 20 years of Sarah Boone? Now, what this didn't answer to me is this is for motions. Now, the letters she was writing were to the judge. But if she's pro se, Sarah Boone doesn't have to stay on script for her motions. This guy, as I said, I did look up some of the case. I read a little bit of it, some of his submissions. Specifically the ones that triggered this. He is a lot more professional than Sarah. It feels like he's going through, how do I want to word this? Maybe some like templates, like maybe some prison templates showing him like what to say, where to say it, and he's piecing it together. Very much, I wouldn't say super professional, but you can tell that there's some either knowledge or appearance of knowledge in how it's filed. Now with Sarah Boone, what do I expect? I expect her to start with that, and then when things don't go her way, maybe she finds out, maybe she gets a call, maybe she gets a letter that these are back online, that she starts just ranting, why won't my son call? Why won't Brian call? Things like that. Things like that. I will say I do check Sarah Boone's docket daily. Multiple times a day. I can't say daily. I check it multiple times a day just in case. I have a few cases that I check periodically, most of the federal level. Just checking to see if there's anything of interest to cover. Um, I will say right now, I've tried to find like some true crime to cover that really pulls me in, like Sarah Boone did. Even what I would try to do at one point, I tried to find if there's anyone that ever did letters submitted specifically to Florida, because to me it's just easier to look into. That I could find that did letters similar to Sarah, and maybe she's like a special, unique unicorn, but I didn't seem to find any. Um, and I noticed there's like a lack of trials that I'm interested in, at least covering starting soon. And I guess that makes sense, right? Because you seat a jury right now, and what happens Thanksgiving? You seat a jury. You can do it after Thanksgiving. Well, families have Thanksgiving for what? I mean, really, sometimes people travel. I known people that have Thanksgiving dinner like December 7th, right? Like that happens. And then of course you get into December and you have Christmas and you have the post Christmas and people trying to get ready for Christmas and traveling. And I think it's going to be kind of a dead time for true crime, which means I don't know what I cover now between November and December. My usual stuff, the political stuff. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's there. Um, Sarah Boone in December, of course. January, of course, though. When January hits, I expect there'll be some more cases to cover. I'm excited for it. I really am. That's when if you don't know, that's when advertising revenue dies. That'll be a fun time. That's where you put in more work than ever for less income than ever in like Twitch or YouTube or any sort of like social media stuff. You make like anything that involves ad revenue, you make nothing in January. But that's whatever. Funny enough, that's when it seems like a lot of things happen that are worth covering is January. Every year. Um, I've tried to find like, as I said, I check anything for Sarah Boone that I think might be super interesting. Now there are some things I've never actually covered on the channel. I've never watched some of the body cam footage, I don't believe, on the channel. I've never actually like done a reaction to her on the stand, but I feel like everyone's done that at this point, and I could probably do like someone's coverage. Well, like I think I could probably do like a reaction because if you've watched my videos, I do interject quite a bit, fair use, and just use someone else's video from the court. And if they wanted to claim the video, I wouldn't care too much. It'd be more about getting like the completeness. But I don't feel like I need to really at this time. That might change. I don't really feel like I need to cover Sarah Boone's testimony because it's out there. Everyone's seen it. Maybe closer to like the actual sentencing to like get a refresher, because the sentencing, here's my plan for the sentencing. My plan is I'm going to be watching it. I have made sure as best I can there is absolutely nothing that can interrupt me during this time for the sentencing. From my understanding, the sentencing won't be long. So my plan is to do as best I can transcribing any victim impact statements, and then I'll probably do as I did before, just notes about what is said from the defense side, and of course what the judge says, instead of like reacting to the video. I know a lot of people are planning to do live streams for that and watch like court TV's footage or whatever. I'm not at this time planning to do that. That again, that may change. I know if you go on certain like true crime communities, a lot of people are trying to actually make a trip to go see the sentencing. So I will say, if you're someone who had that idea, you are not alone, and there might be a packed house, and you might want to get there early. I've sat more and thought about what do I think Sarah Boone gets as a sentence, and the thing is, the judge has seen all the evidence. I don't know what Sarah Boone can say to really try to make herself come out better. You know what I mean? I think there's nothing she can do. Personally, I don't think there is anything that Sarah Boone can do to help herself at this point. And I don't think the judge is just going to give her the minimum, personally. Um, I've been meaning to look more into him, actually. Uh, I'm sure there's a way I can do this. I've kind of wanted to look into his previous murder cases and just see how he sentences generally, or how he sentences in general. But to me, he doesn't feel like someone who's just going to give her the minimum. I don't think she'll get life, but I think she'll get effectively life. But I would argue that minimum is almost effectively life for Sarah Boone at her age, with life expectancies in prison. And I'm going to be honest, Sarah Boone is insufferable. She is going to cry wolf. She is going to cry wolf about anything that gets her special treatment, in my opinion. I think Sarah Boone is going to try to be in the medical, getting checked out constantly, to the point where if there is a problem, she's crying wolf and they're probably not going to treat her properly because they can't believe her. I think Sarah Boone is going to cause issues with other inmates, and that might end up negatively impacting her health in a variety of ways. I've seen a lot of people mention that they do think she'll get out at the minimum. I think Sarah Boone is her own worst enemy. I think Sarah Boone, even if she got the minimum, is going to get more charges from inside. I think Sarah Boone is going to keep making letters as well, in some form, if she can. If she can get them out there, I think she will. And if she gets them out there and they appear on YouTube, someone is going to tell her. And there'll be YouTubers that I think will try to call Sarah Boone after the sentencing. Try to get her on a call. Try to get her to make a statement. People contacted her before the trial. The thing is, Sarah Boone, what does she have at this point, what does Sarah Boone have other than the little bit of attention she can get from the outside world? Her son, from what we can tell, doesn't like her. Her ex-husband doesn't like her. She doesn't have family. She doesn't have friends. She doesn't have anything. They didn't talk about having friends or family as a character witness for the sentencing. What they talked about with Sarah Boone was having an expert. When they tried to get someone who was basically a character witness, that's what she was, the woman, the neighbor. All they could find was that single neighbor who didn't live next door. Not the friends you saw on the body cams that were outside with her. They're gone. They aren't there anymore. And it'll be interesting, too, I think, to see the people that go, if they recognize the people that were there before and recognize the supposed prison girlfriend, if she shows up to the sentencing, or if that has ended as well. And if you ask me, what letter from Sarah Boone am I most excited to get if she makes more letters, I want to see her talk about James Owens. I would be interested to see Sarah Boone's opinion on how the case went, and if she will admit that he followed her orders for certain things and then complain when he didn't for others. Because remember, he had the judge explain to her things like, we decide what witnesses to use, the lawyer does, not the client. I think there's still a lot to cover with Sarah Boone, but I don't want to just put out completely worthless content for the sake of it, because I know people are scrambling for anything Sarah Boone. The only reason you got this video is because I dug this up. I happened across it, and it made me think about Sarah. It made me think about the future we could have with her. 20 years. I'm hoping in 20 years I don't remember her. I really do. But theoretically, 20 years. And the thing is, technology is always advancing. What do I mean by that? In 5-10 years. What if they decide that due to humanitarian reasons, it's even easier for prisoners to contact outside of prisons? If that is the case, we could be getting a lot more. But I've talked a while, a lot of rambling about plans and things. It's kind of a little channel update. There's not any other cases that have me drawn right now that are active or upcoming. Maybe I'll find one. But I was kind of blown away. The part that really made me decide to make this video instead of like a post on my community page was the fact that this was 20 years. That is wild to me. If you like the content, like, comment, subscribe. I have a whole bunch of Sarah Boone stuff, a whole playlist. I have a bunch of other random stuff. If you're interested in that, that'll be there as well.